Welcome, everybody, to the Life Sciences Virtual Trailblazer group. We are so excited to have you all here today. And anybody that's joining us on the recording, welcome, welcome. We've got some really interesting, fascinating, amazing, and groundbreaking stuff to see today. You're going to be among the first of people to see it. So, super pumped about that. Also, if you haven't registered, we've got a couple of really great sessions coming up in the next 2 months. Next month, we're going to have Brian Murphy, who is I think the preeminent architect on Health Cloud. So if you have never attended a session that's been run by Brian Murphy, you've got to get there next month. He's going to give us insights, tips, and tricks on things that he sees go well and not well as an architect in the life sciences. So that's going to be a good one. And then the month after that, we've got a group that will be joining us to talk about how CROs can use Health Cloud for patient recruitment and enrollment, which should be a really fantastic session. They're still working on putting the finishing touches, but get yourself signed up for those. Those are going to be really awesome. So today, I can't believe Jordan and Douglas, the day is finally here. We've been, sort of prepping on this and riffing on this, getting it ready for everybody so that everyone could have a really worthwhile meeting today. One of our goals in the Life Sciences Trailblazer group is to get everybody involved in and feel like they've got a community of people to reach out to, but also so that you can see new things, poke holes in it, ask questions about it, and know what types of solutions you can deliver to your customers. So Jordan from Formstack that
Yes.
we've known for years and years. You're ready today, right, Jordan?
Oh, I'm psyched. I'm ready to go. I stretched this morning, so hopefully nothing gets pulled throughout this process.
Amazing. So Jordan's got some really interesting and deep insights on the life sciences industry and ways that we can extend the way that Salesforce can respond to that. I think everybody here is aware of the Salesforce and Viva split. If you are, give like a little thumbs up or a thumbs up reaction. That's been something that we've been watching for a while, and what it's done is open this sort of crevice that all of us in the Salesforce ecosystem can step into. So Jordan and Formstack have been working on the things they know really well about healthcare and clinical practice and how that can shift over into the life sciences. So he's going to tell you a couple of things today. He does want you to ask questions, comment in the chat, chat to each other. It's a lively type of group. And I think, Jordan, if they stay to the end, you've got some swag.
We got a little something, something. If you can, yeah, make it to the end with us. And yeah, seconding exactly what Shannon said. Shannon, thanks for the hype tape there. Please, yeah, please do come off mute, ask questions, anything that you need as we go through here. Douglas and I are hoping this whole thing isn't just a soliloquy for you. But as a quick, just like show of hands, nobody has to come off mute if they don't want to. Who's just like familiar with Formstack even on like a base level, just so I can kind of understand. All right, cool. So we have some people who aren't at all. So I'll just do a 5 second step back. So Formstack, we are a company that specializes in workflow automation. We've got a extremely robust forms tool. We're one of the only forms tools actually that's 100% native within Salesforce. We've got document generation and we've got e-signature. Those have been kind of the three parts of the stool that's kept Formstack up and strong for so long. But what we're here to talk to you all today actually is about an evolution in what Formstack's able to do. So we still take the forms, the documents, and the e-signature, but what we've done is we've actually kind of strapped a brain into the center of it. About a year ago, we had an acquisition of a company called Open Raven that was led by a gentleman named Dave Cole. Dave Cole was in early days of CrowdStrike. He helped build that program. He helped build Tenable. Saying this to say that security is at the center of this new product that we want to show you all today, as I know security is at the center of everything that you all do in the life sciences world. So what we've done is we've created a zero copy data fabric that can sit on top of multiple different data sources. So Salesforce being one of them, but if somebody has some things living in Epic, living in Cerner, living in some of those kind of like H parts, we won't talk about them too much, but the health part of the HLS world that you all sometimes have to dive in between, but any other systems that kind of siloed data might be sitting inside of. And so we took that brain and then we started attaching features of what we've done best, which is those forms, being able to collect data, but pre-fill that data from multiple different data sources and have that data flow back into multiple different data sources to be able to generate some documents and e-signature consents maybe that would come from multiple different data sources from a pre-fill. And then we started to expand on what Formstack can do. If you want to look at the contract lifecycle management, there is a trial beginning, and you are working with some different hospitals on being able to trial and work with their organizations. So there's going to be a little bit of a redlining, a process of communication through a contract. And we also have some OCR capabilities. So somebody wants to submit information via insurance card, driver's license, social security number, but you want to just attach things and you want that information to get from that document into your systems. All again are going to be possible because we've stuck that brain in the middle of all of these different what used to be products and are now features. Formstack, of course, will always still do the forms, documents, and signs. So if you want to talk about that afterwards, we're here for it. But what we really, really want to show you guys is that new that Shannon was talking about. It's our product Streamline. So again, Streamline is going to be taking that zero copy data fabric. I'm just going to repeat this one time and then I'm going to give it to Douglas because I know you all want to see a demo. You don't want to hear me talk here. But again, it's going to be that zero copy data fabric that can sit on all of your different siloed data sources and create an intelligent workflow that reduces the need for double data entry. It's going to be able to do a ton of vendor consolidation because like I said, what used to be products are now features. And we're going to be able to do all of that with security at the center of it. So none of your organizations are ever going to be worried about, are we showing data that we aren't supposed to? Is a user having access to something that they shouldn't because we have those kind of extremely security-minded centers or security-minded features in the heart of this product. So with that being said, before I hand it off to Douglas, any questions, concerns? Can I get a what, or anything like that? Yeah, let's go, Shannon.
Um, Quick question, because I know we've got some people here that are site side or sponsor side.
Hmm.
Jordan, when you're thinking about where this sits or operationally,
Yeah.
do you think that Streamline could sit site side, sponsor side, or do you think it's something where multiple organizations that are interacting on these different systems? You mentioned Epic and Cerner, but thinking about like IQVIA data or any of those other sort of sources in the fabric. Is it something where there is an interoperational capacity so that we could have that sort of utopia where sites and sponsors and patients being enrolled can all pay attention to the same thing at the same time?
So yes, I believe so. And it's kind of how the product's being designed. And so what we would want to do is be able to kind of include those different users from all those kind of different places. And so you can send out different alerts and different kind of forms. And again, the document side of parts, just making sure the right information gets to the right people at the right times, I guess would be the most simple way to put that. And again, with the being site side or with you maybe sending some of this information out external to everybody who'd be on that kind of life sciences team. That's again where the user permissions and we make those very, very granular are going to come into play so that you can make sure that, anything that's going to Douglas is stripped of anything HIPAA or PII, anything that's going to Andrew, he's got full Monty. So he should be able to actually see all of this because he's kind of the brains behind the operation. So we do see this as being flexible to where you can start incorporating other folks and make sure that an entire team of people, whether that's just in your organization, it's site, or maybe you have to bring in some external parties, all can be kind of on that same page and marching in the same direction.
Love that. Thanks, Jordan. I know there's plenty of people who are on this call that have been site side where you're working with 800 pieces of technology depending on the study or program. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to see Streamline. Even the word alone, Streamline, is exciting.
Yeah.
So I'll stop yapping.
No, you're good. This is exactly what we wanted. Yeah, please do interrupt. But if nobody does interrupt, I've got a giant water bottle next to me, so I can talk all day long if you guys don't have questions. So just be ready for that.
Yeah, he's not
Um,
joking either.
but actually, in all seriousness, after I just said I'll talk all day long, I'm going to stop talking. And Douglas, let's take him through what Streamline looks like today. And as Douglas goes through, again, please interrupt him with any questions, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So as Shannon said, let's get chatty.
Yeah, and so before I'm going to jump right into the demo first and then kind of go into the nuts and bolts and some of the other supporting vocabulary and concepts. But one thing I want to emphasize up front is this hasn't even technically launched. There's a few customers that have preview. So whatever I say now, like we're constantly evolving. So if you have ideas or things that are really important, we want that feedback. So take this as sort of the baseline, and we're going to grow from there. So that said, the quick demo today is going to be basically an IRB e-consent. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the full thing, but it's an IRB. I made it fake, but to look reasonable so that you don't sit there and go, this guy's nutty. But yeah, basically here we have our template, and so this is going to connect both to Streamline as well as Salesforce. So the overall workflow here is we're going to pull the data from Salesforce. We would then send it to a participant. Again, Streamline is still new, so at this point, I'm going to be the one interacting and authenticating myself. But in the future, this would obviously go to participant, patient, a site, provider, whoever it is. I'm also going to leverage our OCR capability that Jordan mentioned a little bit ago. Then we'll go to the actual document piece where we pull in the data. We call it merging. So for those of you who are familiar with programming or coding, think of that like your variable. So you have your static text as well as your variables coming in from either the form or Salesforce. Then we're going to assign it, and then we'll send an email notification. And then the cool part is we're going to write back to Salesforce. This is a relatively straightforward demo. When I looked at the calendar and saw Friday the 13th, I was like, nope, keep it simple. Thing, live demo always goes wrong. The 13th is going to be like extra bad, so let's keep it simple. Kidding aside. But to the question earlier, to what Shannon was asking and Jordan was describing, we could extend this. So right now I'm just doing Salesforce, but there could be 3 or 4 other sources you're pulling from. There could be 3 or 4 different participants. This demo is not configured to do that, but in the future, we do want to make that possible. And then the cool part is, so with the deliver data piece, if you have all those different things coming in, you could send it to a single source of truth on the back end. We're not going to necessarily be able to clean 12 different data sets at once, but if you have a thing where someone can go, hey, here's where the final real source of truth lives. We can combine it, put it in there, and then moving forward, that would improve the hygiene and accessibility, obviously with permissions, but improve that over time. So keep that in mind as we're going through. And also, just so you can see, there's nothing fancy here. This is just a demo record I have in our org. But the 2 fields here that we're going to update will be the study consent and the follow-up. So both of those will see yes at the end. And then also, so you can see the preview capability, I have a imaginary person with some basic data here. So without further ado, let me jump over and I'll start a new session here. And so this is where I'm going to type in and search for the person I want to pull data in for. And then in reality, I would then send this to her to sign. I would also say in this demo, I'm keeping it simple and just using name, but the reality is name is not necessarily the best indicator. So you would want to have some sort of anonymized ID or phone number, email, something that's a little bit better. But again, it's a demo, keeping it simple. So here we have found Avery. We've also found the study number and the PI. So I'll go ahead and click. This is where you could theoretically deviate and send it out to the person, but I'll go ahead and continue. And so here, this is the form component. So here, this is what Avery would see if she were filling it out. So we've pre-filled her name already, as well as the study number. Oh, and hey, cool, I have a typo. That's cool. So I'll go ahead and fill that in and say, yep, I consent. I was having an issue earlier, so I pulled out, I had a little mock-up of this, but I went ahead and pulled it out. But here, I'll go ahead and pull in the ID. So this is just a fake ID I found online. We're uploaded. Cool. So now we'll submit. So far, this is just basically a normal form experience, but now we transition into the document and signing piece. And one thing with Streamline is, so Jordan alluded to our core products. So previously, we would have like a form product, a documents product, and a sign product. Nothing wrong with that. But in Streamline, all of those modules are all wrapped together. So you're not worried about separate licensing, separate products, separate access. Like within Streamline, it just exists. Okay, so now on the back end, I'll go ahead and start signing. So this would be like the full version that Avery would see and can review. And you can see here, I didn't pull the template up initially, but the reference number here, this will be a merge field. So this is pulled in from Salesforce in this case, but it could also come from the form. So if we scroll down, the other piece here, so may we contact you again, it has recognized that I input yes, which we want. And then here, let me blow it up just a little bit. Here is where we have the signing piece. So here, I can either type it in or draw. I'll do a nice little scribble. We also timestamp this for compliance and auditing purposes. The name here, this is coming from Salesforce directly. Now, you can call me out on this. The ID didn't match Avery exactly, so forgive me that. But here, this took the image of the ID and is looking for and finding that information. So if there was some sort of verification perspective, say maybe there's insurance involved in whatever study is going on, maybe you want to verify that, you can pull that in and see that. It's also rendering her address, and it's also pulled her driver's license number itself. And then here, this is just coming from Salesforce as well. So I'll go ahead and mark as complete. And so this, for the core workflow, this has now wrapped up the core workflow element. And so now we're sending off the notification. The notification does take a minute or two. So I will start over here and cool. So here, all I've done is refreshed my Salesforce record. It has written back the data from that I entered on the form as well as on the document. And so now we have that. So from like a Salesforce CRM perspective, you're good. This could, in theory, this demo is not set up this way, but in theory, you could have derivative flows set up. So maybe here, if consent was no, maybe it sends an email or notification to Jasper, our PI, to say, hey, Avery has said no. Do you want to reach out or maybe remove her from further communications, whatever? Or if yes, maybe there's a packet that gets automatically emailed from Salesforce or something. The idea here is yes, we want to do as much as possible within Streamline, but we also want to connect and recognize that there's other elements outside of Streamline that we need to tie into and play nicely with. And to wrap up, let's verify that. Yep, it looks like it came in. Yep, so here, this is the emailed final copy. So here we have a nice little scribble, we have it timestamped, and then we also have this will be expanded in time, but we have a completion certification. So again, depends on the compliance and auditing that you need, but this is confirmation that, yes, this person signed and acknowledged the consent. Therefore, if any questions arise, you can now point to this and say, consent was voluntarily granted. As well, Avery gets a copy as well. That way there's no, we're trying to be transparent, not trying to hide anything. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is the demo itself. As I alluded to, this is evolving almost on a daily basis. So some things I didn't show, we are looking to build a Salesforce Streamline managed package that should be available later this fall. That would, originate from Salesforce specifically. We're also including branching logic. So maybe if Avery had mentioned no, maybe a separate tree branches off with a separate set of conditions. And there's also an approvals element that just went online. I didn't include it here, but that could be something like maybe the PI wants to review it before it goes off for signature. So the point that I'm trying to convey is there's a lot of flexibility. We're trying to include as much as possible, as well as blend all of these different data sources. And then
Hey,
also, Jordan.
sorry, Douglas. Yeah, really quick. There was a really great question in the chat that I'm not 100% sure on the answer, so I didn't want to throw it out in writing. But when the person attached that driver's license, I know with our forms for Salesforce, we can kind of bring that attachment and make sure it lives within the object. It does Streamline have the same capabilities?
At this moment, no, but that would be a logical extension of because you're collecting it, you want to store it. But yeah, we'll be heading in that direction.
Thank you.
And also, just Jordan mentioned it earlier, but in that same vein, Streamline itself will not store a copy of that driver's license, and that would apply for anything. So, insurance card, passport, anything else sensitive, we're not storing the data. Salesforce, Snowflake, SQL, whatever your destination is, that would be where it lives. We only retain and interact with the data for the duration of the workflow, because obviously we have to. So there's that element, but we're trying to minimize our element risk exposure both for us as well as the patients and our customers. We don't want sensitive information going out there.
That's
Let
a
me
good
see.
point, Douglas, too. And I think, one of the things that will be interesting as, this product reaches its maturation is its flexibility and being able to maintain data where it's required to be maintained, but also not when, the FDA guidance or your IRB says, this has to be stored somewhere differently and not attached to enrolled subject information.
We also did get another question in the chat from Brendan, also Shannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of actually give a bit of a grad school response, so feel free to wrist slap me. uh, Thinking role wise, Jordan, I mean, obviously Jordan and I work together, so we talk about and communicate, and so we think about it that way. But Jordan is going to be more of the like core use case, like the vertical element, whereas the way I look at it is, this is a process. So pharma sample requests, driver's license application, registering for college. I know I'm going outside of life sciences here, but I think of this as a process. The core element is we are interacting with data, we're doing something with data, we're making a request, and then somehow actioning the data. So, yes, 100% pharmaceutical RX sample requests. I see that totally fitting in. My experience is a little lighter on the life sciences health piece specifically, just because the projects I've worked on have been more, healthcare or higher ed, nonprofit, that kind of thing. But I totally see that as fitting in with what we would do. And if you have a specific example in mind or want to explore that further, I'll volunteer Jordan and myself and say, hey, we're more than happy to have that conversation. Because, yeah, it's totally there.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I know that's a big ask of a lot of pharmaceutical companies. Just Shannon, you mentioned Viva, and that's part of what they have, today, right? So kind of the forms and attestation, signature, that sort of thing. Definitely features that are really, really needed. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, and one piece, again, this is evolving daily. One piece I did learn, I think, on Wednesday. So currently, so in our core forms products, you can sign on the form. Currently in Streamline, you can't, but that will be coming. So if there's an element, a workflow where you don't necessarily want to generate a document, then in the future you would also be able to just sign on the form. And then again, I'm not a lawyer, so talk to your compliance teams. But if that is okay, then you could just capture the signature on the form and then have a simplified workflow as well.
Do you guys have this on the iPad for Salesforce as well? Like you mentioned, it's integrated, or is it? I didn't mean to like interrupt the flow, but just curious.
Yeah. So the theme and branding elements have not been fully launched yet. So in terms of like full scale mobile responsiveness, it's simplified right now. But we will be doing that. And from my perspective, the real element is as long as you have an internet connection, you're good. So this could be done on a phone, a tablet, desktop, laptop, wherever you're needing to work, as long as you can connect to the internet, you're good. Obviously, the layout would change, but that's more of a screen-based limitation rather than responsiveness or accessibility.
Yeah, and then Sam also just asked a great question, and Douglas, then we'll let you keep on going here. But Sam, how folks are using Formstack right now, with the different kind of like examples and outlines that you used there are through our Forms for Salesforce product. So we do currently like have the like intake process, kind of data intake process through that, where Formstack actually lives on top of the Salesforce architecture. So it doesn't touch any Formstack servers. So how they're using that now, or they're building out kind of those complex forms that would kind of live within the Salesforce world. And that's also how we're ensuring compliance is they make sure that the kind of Salesforce checks all the boxes of safety and security when it comes to handling the data. And because Forms for Salesforce sits right on top of that org, and again, does not touch any servers outside of that force.com, we can maintain the compliance. So that's how we exist today. And with Streamline, that's how we'll continue to, well, it's not exactly how we'll continue to exist. We're not going to live on top of the force.com architecture, but what we've done is we've taken a lot of efforts to make sure that when we do reach into these data sources that you can kind of now see on Douglas's screen, that we're able to do so again with that zero copy. And as Douglas mentioned, we're not retaining any of the information, just temporary pass-throughs. We just know where it is supposed to live, and we're more of just like the tunnels that the data can flow through.
Yeah, and I don't want to go down the super technical rabbit hole, but the way we do that is we store the metadata. So we store the structure. So like when I did a search for Avery earlier, it doesn't necessarily know that Avery exists or doesn't exist. It just knows, hey, I have this search term, go to Salesforce. If it meets the criteria, then we return the data and then proceed on the workflow. Yeah, and then Jordan, before I interrupt you, do you want me to take back over for a few minutes?
Yeah, take back over for a few minutes. And then just as conscious of time, I've got one more kind of outline that I want to show with Streamline, but
Perfect.
yeah, keep laying the foundation.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So within here, so obviously we're talking about Salesforce here, but we're not limited to Salesforce. So one of like the things with our core offering was we were pretty much wedded to Salesforce pretty tightly. Nothing wrong with that. But here, because there are the epics and SQLs and other databases out there, we recognize that we have to bring those in as well. So here in the data sources tab, this is where we define that. So like this is our demo org. We're obviously bringing in what we can. So we have Oracle, we have Salesforce, we have Postgres database, SQL, and Redux. Redux is kind of a special situation. Don't have time to go into that now, but it is an interesting case here. So like in our demo org, it's a mess working through that, but we have like 700 plus objects right now. So it's pulling in everything. But here, like on Oracle and SQL, they're a lot cleaner. We're giving a high level overview there. One other thing is we have a data fabric slash data catalog. And so what that's doing is looking at the data and is trying to understand, hey, is there anything sensitive here? So like in life sciences and healthcare, you're obviously probably going to have sensitive data related to people. And so this is, A, it alerts you, but B, kind of what Jordan was talking about earlier with the role-based access is maybe you have a group assigned where that group cannot access sensitive data. If that's the case, they would be automatically blocked from this data. Or vice versa, maybe admins only have access. And so it's a way of trying to simplify the management of how things are built and managed. And then going from there, another way you can control this is like here. So this is a representation of the data that we were just looking at. So you have Salesforce as the data source, but within that, because of all the data we have in there, trying to access and interact with it on a single workflow would be very unwieldy. What I've done here is say, hey, cool, I have Salesforce, but within Salesforce, I'm looking at a specific object. Now, in this one, it is a demo object, it's clean, so I just said, hey, go forth and show me everything. But you could restrict it or make things read only versus writable. So this is where you would control sort of that more object and record level data and interactiveness. And then the data catalog here, this is where you can sort of, you're not managing this, you're more viewing, interacting, and seeing like, oh, do I have a duplicate of this or do I need something else? So just letting you see kind of what you have already. And then this here, we're calling them projects, but this is where like the workflow would be. So these are all the ones we have here. So like some training stuff. I'm not sure what PHQ-9 is, but that's another one we have. Also financial services. So this is where you would control the workflows that you would then execute. And then within that, so this is the given project you saw earlier, this is where we define the modules and process. Connected data cloud. Specifically, I don't know. I will say that we are different from Data Cloud. We're not trying to compete with Data Cloud. So if there's any objects in Data Cloud, I don't see why we couldn't connect with them, but offhand, I don't know specifically. And then lastly here, I know we're running up on time, but this is, the standard add, remove users, define access and groups, very similar to how Salesforce does it. And then one thing, I guess that's okay, I guess I'm not in prod. One other thing is we do have an AI component as well. And so that's something where you could go in and ask questions about the health of the projects, are there any issues going on, and try to get, understand metrics in a more dynamic and modern way. And then the final piece, it is being built out, but we do also have audit logging and tracking. So if anything does break, that's how you kind of go in and do the first level of troubleshooting. I know it's a lot of information real quick. Please, if you do have questions, reach out to Jordan or myself, and we'd be happy to answer or connect you with the right people. Jordan, back to you. And I do know there's swag, so I do not want to take away from the distribution of swag.
Yeah. Perfect. And yeah, mine will be quick. Kind of what I wanted to do is just, again, we opened it up just like the level of form stack of who we are. Douglas kind of showcased some of the building blocks of what Streamline is. And one of the things that we really want to leave you with on where Streamline plays the biggest part is even outside of Douglas's kind of like he said, he simplified it way down of just a easy workflow of just like 5 or 6 steps. But where Streamline really is going to be a fit and what we want to start tackling are the like critical issues that pharma companies or trialer companies, anything like that, are going to be kind of experiencing where the workflow is actually long and really stretches out. Kind of what Shannon put in the chat earlier of like, imagine like a clinical trial where from the start of the applications of all the people that might be involved in the clinical trial, who's going to be approving it, what doctors are referring it, what information are they sending, what insurances are going to be involved. When we start to get really messy at the beginning, and then as you go through the trial, talking, so if I'm the one who's going to be a part of it, updating how am I feeling every 3 or however many months are the check-ins of it. What other medications am I taking? What other things am I kind of going to do? Am I part of the placebo group? Am I part of the blind study? All these different like variables and aspects of the life science workflow where it starts to really start to get complicated. And again, we start to interact with more and more data systems, more and more people. We're asking the same questions over and over and over again. That's really where Streamline's going to find its fit is we're kind of taking these like what used to be complicated and messy data heavy processes and question heavy processes, and we start to, feel free to slap me here, but streamline them. Being able to start never having to ask your trialers or anybody who's experiencing or kind of going through something with you, never asking them the same question twice. Never having somebody who is looking at a form submission and then manually typing half of that form into Salesforce, a fourth of that form into somewhere else, and a fourth of that form into a third playa to be named later. Also, never having to kind of like look at that form and going, all right, hey, we're going to pre-fill this portion, but again, we're going to need to ask you these ones over again because we can only pre-fill from Salesforce. We can't pre-fill from 2 places at the same time. That's really where Streamline starts to catch its legs and is going to be a solution that's going to be right. Is when we start to add those complications, those variables that till now have been really difficult to wrangle. That's really where Streamline's going to be able to play.
Jordan, I love that. And I think Brendan's question was illuminative, which is, when people are looking for sample requests or they may be looking for consumables requests, I think Streamline is going to help to integrate that end to end. And not all life sciences is clinical research, but clinical
Yep.
research is so heavy and complicated and there's still fax machines. And so I think especially if you're on site side or sponsor side, you're just working with so much technology that does not have a consistent flow. And so I think that was what got me so excited when I saw the early demo of Streamline. How can people reach out to you, Jordan, to say, to ask questions like Brendan did, which is like, is this capable of? And then, how can you help us all understand the art of the possible without us dragging you down with requests?
Perfect. I owe you $20 for the segue. I just posted in the chat a forms company. You know I wasn't going to get through a whole call without sending you a form. So just posted a little survey in the chat where it's just, yeah, share a little bit of info. I've got a couple options of maybe where you're at on an interest level, or even if you just want to share some feedback. But please do fill that out, and I will follow up with everybody that submits. I'll also kind of follow up with anybody. I'd love to find you on LinkedIn and just stay connected. But that'll be the best way to reach out. And with Streamline being a new launch for us, you're going to see pretty much one of the largest go-to-market pushes actually in Formstack's history come end of this month on this product. Reach out, talk to us, ask questions. We are extremely agile right now with the features and what the product can do. We've been working with Shannon to understand how it fits with your all's vertical, and we've made changes even in the last like month and a half on our marketing strategy and kind of what some of the product can and can't do based on her feedback. So we are very much so in the market for tell us what you think. And we would love to kind of react on that and make sure that this is going to be a bullseye for what you're looking for.
That's awesome. Why don't we pull swag and then
Yes, of
Jordan and Douglas, if you guys can stay on for a couple minutes, this way we can end on the promised time, but also keep it open if anybody has any feedback for
course.
you. Sweet. Well, Jordan, what's the swag? Tell us.
All right. So we've got Formstack like thermal cups. So everybody hates when your drink changes the temperature, or if it was hot and now it's cold, if it's cold and now it's hot, that ruins your day. So we've got a couple different thermal cups that we can handle. And then if anybody's a scarf fan, I also have some scarves just in time for summer. I know, Ramesh, you're like, "Ah, I would love a scarf as I come into this 100-degree Arizona heat." But the thermal cups are actually really, really nice. I've got a couple that I've stolen from us. So I've got three different thermal cups, and I'll throw the scarves in with those cups as we go. So we can spin the wheel 3 times, Andrew.
Got it. All right, I'm gonna spin. If you can hear it's clicking. Okay, so our first winner is Corey. Wow. Congratulations, Corey. I'm taking you out. You already won.
Yeah, you should take me out of there.
Right. And anybody who's the winner, I just shared my email. Just reach out to me and I'll make sure that I get the swag to wherever it is that you need it to be.
Brendan, winner 2. All right, here we go. And last one. Shauna, big winner. RTP represent. Right, there we go.
Perfect. Congratulations. And yeah, like Shannon said, we're still free. Please like ask us questions, poke holes in it. What would be useful? The offline is a great call out. And yeah, it's something we're actively working on. But like what else would maybe make this product a hell yeah? Sam, you came off mute, so I'm gonna pick on you if nobody says anything.
Yeah, Jordan, I'm just thinking like out loud. Now Salesforce is heavily moving on to the agentic era, right? And do you think,
Hmm.
this is a form is more of interactive, it's like conversational?
Yeah, great call out. So we're also gonna move in that direction a little bit, but again, to Douglas's point, we don't want to compete. So like what we don't want to create like, agents just as Salesforce is creating agents, but where we see AI really playing a part within Streamline is, well, first of all, it's in the coding and the core of it. We don't call this an AI, it's not an AI product, but AI is very much so behind the scenes. This is a product that's been built for the future, and it's been built with the kind of the futuristic kind of program. Man, I'm getting out of my depth, Douglas, so you can save me. But it's basically built with the future in mind. There's a lot of AI functions that are going on behind the scenes. Where we see that really playing a part is we want you to be able to start querying the information that might be going on through your workflows, and we want you to be able to start querying the data sources that you have connected. Not for like the information to say like, hey, can you pull out all of Andrew's information? But being able to say, can you look at my different data sources that I have connected, and can you outline where all do I have name fields that live? Do I have multiple areas that social security numbers are being stored? Can you talk to me about my workflow A and show me the trends in demographics, and can you show me the trends in kind of completions of that workflow? That's where we really start to see AI functioning in our world, is being able to report on the information and the data sources that you have connected.
Yeah, you did really well, Jordan. The one
Thank you.
like, extension there is since we're not storing data in terms of grounding or keeping, a body of data to have the AI look into and then make those assessments. By design, we don't have that. And so like that kind of agentic interaction at least at this point, doesn't really make sense. So that's where something like the agents within Salesforce or elsewhere, that's where that would probably be the most impactful. But our CTO and product team are keenly aware of the importance of AI and how that's all playing out. So without getting them on the line, we are aware and thinking about it, but not specifically within this piece.
Ramesh, thanks for joining. Yeah, we'll be at Boston World Tour, so we'll connect with you there. Cool. Any other questions, ideas? Again, one of the most valuable things we can get now is feedback, poking holes in what you think will or won't work on the product on Streamline. And I also saw some form submissions were coming in, so very much so appreciate those. And I'll be, again, following up with everybody on those as new information comes out. But I really appreciate all your time.
I have one question just for the very last piece. Jordan, how much
Yeah.
time do you think people are spending on these forms and that you will save them with Streamline? Like, there's got to be a crazy number out there somewhere.
So yeah, hours and hours. We've done actually one study specifically. Again, I'm going to bring up the healthcare side, but we've done actually one study within the healthcare world, and one of the kind of early people who are using Streamline specifically is a hospital that is looking to ramp up their patient throughput. It's huge dollar value for them. It's again a critical issue that the hospital's focusing on. And they did a quick study that I can share with everybody in the group, but it's hours and hours of time of nurses and doctors taking the charts and what they've written down, sitting down and actually typing in like all the different information that's been faxed to them from like referring a patient from entry to cardiology that then needs to go to another one of the departments in the hospital, all of the time that the data kind of manual entry is being going on, and then looking at the patients too. It's been hours and hours, and we've actually done a pretty robust study on the kind of efficiencies that workflow can create and Streamline will create with removing all that. The 5 second answer, Andrew, is hours once you actually put together the entire workflow. Like I
Yeah.
said, that's where Streamline's going to fit is when we don't look at just like one form and one document. I would honestly recommend Formstack Core for that. If you just got one form and one document, I don't think Streamline's the fit. Streamline's going to be the fit when we're looking at a total process of end to end, what is going to be going on. And we've got a ton of different data sources, a ton of different interactions, and a ton of different opportunities for data entry.
Very cool. Sure, it's going to be in the thousands. So
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for creating this custom demo so that we could, start thinking about the art of the possible within the life sciences, which again is an area that Salesforce can't really touch until they're officially divorced from Viva. So I think we've all been looking for something tangible to put our hands on, and so this arrived at the right time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to, we'll connect you with more product people. Like, please do ask us questions and we'll showcase everything that we've got. So if it's something where, hey, this is cool and I'm interested, but I've got some questions, let me have them and we'll get you in touch with the right people and you can fire away as many questions as you want.
Love it. Thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody for joining. See you
Thank you
next month
all.
when we have Brian Murphy to talk about architecture in the life sciences. It's going to be a really good one. So see you then.